Hi again. Continuing with the series about the South African conflicts, we come to a book written about a very unique police unit. Now, many of the national level hostage rescue teams throughout the Western world were created in the wake of some major terrorist or criminal event. And that's also the case in South Africa. The catalyst was the Fox Street siege in Joburg, which led senior police officers to realise that there was a need for a dedicated hostage rescue and siege breaking unit. Now, the threads for the formation of this unit are very interesting, and one of the threads relates to Hunter Group or 2 Recce Commando, which the book about which we've reviewed already, and the book was called We Dare. And some members of the South African police were being sent to Rhodesia for actually quite military type operations. So they sought training with the nucleus of the 2 Recce to prepare them for that. Also, there was a group very similar to Hunter Group of the military called Die Bliksems within South African police, who were guys who were very, very keen on high levels of training in shooting, abseiling and this kind of thing. And they formed the nucleus of what became the task force. So in 1976, January, the task force was formally created, and slightly later they ran the first selection at Maleerskop. Anyway, all this is detailed very, very well in this book, The Special Task Force, An Operator's Perspective, by Shane Willard, who served with the unit. The unit was set up for VIP protection, for counter-terrorism, but primarily for hostage rescue. That was their raison d'etre, and a lot of the training focused on the hostage rescue task, with the various options, buildings, aircraft, trains, buses, and other structures, and so on. Now, straight away, the guys who set up the task force, and one of them was a Captain de Schwart, they were hard guys, and they realized that there had to be a selection process, and they started the selection, and it grew over the years, and it became a process which is equivalent to that used by tier 1 military units. So again, in police terms, it's probably unique. It's probably the most severe selection process there is. It all starts with candidates being put through an assessment, which is basically physical tests, screens out any of the no-hopers, and then they're put through what's called a prep-con phase, which lasts 3 weeks, and it's a mixture of testing and building up to get the guys ready for the actual main part of the selection, which is fastbait. And fastbait, which is the Afrikaans term, which kind of means to bite down or to have grit, it is a process which is a continuous 86-hour ordeal with no sleep, no food and very, very limited water in a very austere environment up in a very rugged part of South Africa. So they have various devices. The Beertje, which was devised by one of the instructors, which is a big length of railway line metal with a steel cable on one end with a metal ball like a shot put ball, and it's deliberately designed to have no easy way of carrying it. It's whichever way you carry it, it's lopsided, it's awkward, it swings round, and it's all designed for embuggerance. And so the guys have to carry their individual Beertje for miles. Other exercises include the chocolate box, which is an ammunition box filled with concrete. So the guys who successfully complete fastbait, they go on to the actual training pipeline, and this is comprised of the individual skills and the team skills and the tactical training needed to be an operator within the unit. And this takes place at Vertrek, their unique training establishment, which is only used by the Tarkies, by the task force. And they've got really good facilities there, multi-level CQB house and shoot houses that they can use live ammo in and so on. It's a very, very thorough process, and shooting is emphasized with all the weapons. The pistol, they use an H&K pistol, and various long arms, including the R5 rifle and so on. They did use a lot of MP5s at one stage, but they've gone more towards the R5 type, but lots and lots of weapons. I asked the colonel of the unit how often the guy shot, and he looked at me in surprise, and he said every day. This is in the operational unit. Shoot every day unless we're on and off. So the standard is very, very high, and this is why the unit can be deployed with confidence to resolve a situation, because of the extremely high level. Other subjects include mountain climbing, scaling, diving and so on, and again uniquely tactical freefall. As far as I'm aware, they're the only police unit in the world where every member is qualified in freefall. So after that process, they then go through a resistance to interrogation, which is basically up till a few years ago was basically torture. It was extremely painful process, and then the culmination is a Kalahari phase, the desert, where they have to walk 150k over 2 days, carrying loads and so on. Typical course may start with 250 odd people at the very start of the process and end up with only 8 operators going to the unit. So it's a pass rate on par with national tier 1 military units. The book then describes numerous actual operations that the task force has taken part in, most of them being hostage rescues. South Africa was facing a terrorist war, which has morphed into a criminal war. Extremely high crime rates of murder and sexual assault, and the task force is the cutting edge of the police response to that. So they're extremely busy, so much so that they had to create subunits in Durban and Cape Town to cover the entire country. South African police being a national police force. And some of the cases he outlines. One, a famous one, was in Durban, and a woman was holding her 4-year-old daughter out of the window of an apartment block on the Esplanade in Dublin, in Durban, correction, in Durban, and they had guys on abseil, either side poised, but then they distracted her and made entry, and an operator launched himself across the room and made a grab for the child, and the woman dropped the child, and he just caught the top of her foot with one hand and rescued her. And that operator kept in touch with the child as she grew up. The woman obviously was in prison. So it was an amazing story, and it's a kind of the epitome of a hostage rescue, where an innocent hostage, helpless hostage, is rescued from certain death. So many more stories. Some of them are fairly funny, some of them harrowing. Quite a few involve prison riots and rescue of prison personnel. Obviously a difficult environment, you know, it's steel bars and so on. But the task force could claim to have never lost a hostage. So it's a tremendous record. Unfortunately, since 94 and more recently, the standards have dropped. Captain Willard makes the point that his narrative stops at a certain point, and he can't discuss what's gone on in the unit since, but it's generally known that the standards did drop. They did at one stage bring in a two-tier phase where there was first-class operators and second-class operators. In the old unit they had a system where you had an operator badge, but you were only awarded it after maybe 2 years of doing ops in the unit, and they had a ceremony where the new ops, the guys who graduated from training were given their wings, and the guys who've been in the teams for an appropriate length of time were given their operator badges. So it was quite high standards and very sought after, and those standards have dropped. I don't think they shoot every day anymore, and so on. It's a unique book. There's no other book about the Tarkies, and it's great that it was written by an officer who spent about 10 years with the unit. He specialised in climbing. He was the fundie on that, and also on diving, and he's featured in a few of the cases, so he speaks from first-hand experience on them. Terrific book. It's now widely available. Obviously I'll put a link to it, and there is also an interview with Captain Willard, which I'll link up as well. So really can't recommend this highly enough.